Welcome to The Quiet Record, where every place has a story. Some are written down, others are left behind, waiting for someone to listen. Out of the quiet prairies of southern Manitoba, where gravel roads stretch endlessly through farmland, there once stood a small community called St. Elizabeth. Today, almost nothing remains. No bustling streets, no school bells, just wind and memory. St. Elizabeth was located in the rural municipality of de Salaberry, not far from communities like Saint Pierre-Jolis and Maurice. This region, flat, fertile, and shaped by generations of agriculture. It was part of a wider network of smaller prairie settlements that emerged in the 1800s. Like many of these places, St. Elizabeth was never large, but it was once alive, a place of families, farms, and faith. The roots of St. Elizabeth trace back to the wave of settlement that followed Manitoba's early development. French-speaking settlers, Métis families, and European immigrants spread across the Red River Valley and surrounding plains, establishing small, tightly connected communities. These settlements were often built around three things: a church, a school, and the land. St. Elizabeth followed the same pattern, a quiet agricultural community anchored by its people. One of the clearest records we have of St. Elizabeth comes from its school. The St. Elizabeth School District was established in March of the 1900s. Like many prairie schools of the time, it was a one-room schoolhouse, serving children of all ages. It wasn't just a place of learning, it was a gathering point, a social hub, a symbol that the community had taken root. Over time, the school evolved. In 1961, it became part of a larger consolidated school system, merging with nearby districts, and just a few years later, by 1966, the district was dissolved entirely. The building itself, no trace remains today. The story of St. Elizabeth's disappearance is not unique. It's a story repeated across the Canadian prairies. But it wasn't without hardship. In the 1950s, floodwaters swept across parts of Manitoba, affecting communities through the region. And just a year later, in 1951, the community's church, once a central pillar of daily life, was destroyed by fire. For a place like St. Elizabeth, that wasn't just a building, it was the heart of the community. Even so, these events weren't the final blow. As transportation improved and larger towns became more centralized, smaller communities began to fade. Schools closed, stores disappeared, families moved away. Without its school and without its gathering places, St. Elizabeth slowly unraveled. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Today, St. Elizabeth is often described as a ghost of a place. There were reports of a few scattered remnants, old farmsteads, abandoned homes, and traces only visible if you know where to look. Online accounts from explorers describe it simply. Not much of anything was left, but it was still pretty cool to see. Another noted, a couple old abandoned homes, really neat. It's the kind of place you could drive past and never realize what once stood there. St. Elizabeth represents something larger. Across Manitoba and all of the Canadian prairies, hundreds of communities like this once existed, built on hope, sustained by hard work, and slowly erased by time and change. Today, the land is still there, The fields still grow, the wind still moves across the prairie, but the voices, the laughter, the life that once filled St. Elizabeth has long since faded, leaving behind only a name and the quiet question, how many places like this have we already forgotten? Thank you for spending a few moments here with me. If this place spoke to you, I hope you'll join me again as we explore another forgotten corner and the stories they still hold.